right, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So Kim, before we get started, if you can just introduce yourself in your own words.
I'm sure. So my name is Kim Lewis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Capriotti Sandwich Shop. I've told a lot of you over the past couple of days about what and who Capriotti's is, but we are a premium sub shop. We are headquartered in Las Vegas, originally founded in Delaware. So if you are from the Delaware or Greater Philly area, you're probably familiar, or Vegas. And then we are rapidly growing throughout the country. So if you have never had the opportunity to have one of our extraordinary subs, hopefully you will soon. So I started my career in retail and came up through being a CRM and an email marketing expert. So that was really where my passion lies. It's why I still come to this conference every year. It's my very favorite, even though I'm now in a broader marketing management role. And I spent, 15, 16 years in retail before I made the move over to QSR, and spent about 7 years at Sonic and Inspire Brands before making the move to Capriotti's this year.
Amazing. Now, Kim, especially as I've joined this role at MediaPost, I've spent an uncomfortable amount of time looking at the LinkedIn profiles for CMOs and other marketing executives and seeing how they got to where they are. Yours stands out, and you hit on this briefly, in that it's very unconventional. You came up through CRM, and in QSR especially, it's a lot of prior CPG folks, generalists, category experience experts. So I'm curious for you, coming up with that background, does that give you a different lens on the business compared to your CMO peers?
It absolutely does. So when I did make the leap from retail over into QSR was in 2017, at a time when not a lot of restaurants were really digging deeply into digital. You had some of your category leaders, your pizza players, Chipotle, Starbucks, but in general, your QSRs, fast casuals, even casual dining, were not really doing a lot in digital. So our CEO of Sonic at the time had a big vision around digital and brought me into the organization as someone who had that one-to-one customer focus. And when I came into a big organization, I was the only person in the entire org who had any type of direct-to-consumer background. So it was definitely, it was interesting. I had a couple of, oh my goodness, what have I done moments, because so many conversations that we were having were so brand focused, because that was, for so long, that was the approach for especially in the food industry. It was all about branding and building a brand so that people wanted to come and visit. So it was a lot of change management, but then over time really became a big strategic advantage, because one of the things that I have seen in the evolution since 2017, and especially moving into this new role, is now there's just a completely different expectation of data support. All of us as marketers know and believe in the power of building a brand and in branding, but now there's just this totally different level of expectation of being able to tie your marketing to direct results. And so being able to have that experience of doing that, of knowing how to tie your efforts to specific lift, to specific results, has been a real game changer in allowing me to secure additional resources and projects, because I can prove out a business case and tie it directly to results, which in many cases has won me support and projects over some others where the line to results was maybe a little bit murkier for some other people to see.
Got it. That is such a beautiful segue then into the conversation we're going to have for the next 20 minutes or so. And so I'm curious, like you mentioned Sonic, you've come into programs that didn't exist at all, and you've stood it up from the ground. You've come into some programs in your career, as I understand it, that they already had a little bit of traction, and it was how do you keep improving and iterating. And then you've moved into programs that are very stagnant, and they really need that injection of fresh life. Which one has been your favorite? And then, and it may be different, which one has been the most challenging for you, and why?
It's hard to pick a favorite. It's kind of like picking your favorite child. Goodness, I think all of them have been such different challenges. So in my retail career, I started at Sally Beauty Supply. I came on to build their very first website and their first email marketing program and their first retail loyalty program. That I think was might be my favorite, just because it was the first time that I had done that, and to really take the opportunity to bring this kind of whole new world into a legacy, 50 plus year, $3.5 billion company, and be able to show them all of these new and incredible things that were possible and especially when I was so young, was just really exciting for me, because I felt like I was able to be in rooms that, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome there. I was like, what am I doing in this room in front of all of these important people? But it was so rewarding to be able to show them that there was a new way to look at things and a new opportunity to really propel the business forward. Now the most challenging one, I would say right now at Capriotti's, I have a big challenge ahead of me. It's a 48-year-old brand. I inherited a loyalty program that's been around for 10 years. So there's a lot of the building blocks in place. So then you come in and you can't just wow and dazzle everybody with, I got something new. You have to take it and really dig in and find all the right opportunities to say, okay, where can we tweak? Where can we improve? Where can we get the franchisees to think a little bit differently about the program? So I'm excited about it. We're making really good traction. But it's definitely a challenge to get people to think differently when they're like, well, why do we already have that? Why would we need to worry about that? That's already there. Yeah. So it's been a new and different challenge, as opposed to coming into some other roles where people were hungry for it. Great, we can't wait to have a loyalty program, or we can't wait to have this new digital program. So definitely reinvigorating something that's already there is a new and different challenge than creating something from scratch.
Got it. Okay, so then let's go on this journey of, you have this great idea, or you recognize that what's in place isn't working, and you want to affect that change. Where do you even start? How do you begin to shape stakeholder buy-in to get your project some traction and some footing to move forward?
Well, I think the most important first step is always to seek to understand. So, certainly in my past, I've made the mistake of coming in and thinking I'm ready to go. I've got all the answers. Let's get started. And that is traditionally not very well received within an organization. So, coming in and really seeking to understand, doing your research, asking the questions, working closely, partnering with the people who own it, because typically there's people who are there who have built the things that are in place right now. So making sure that you really ingratiate yourself with them to where they understand that you're not coming in as an adversary. You're not coming in trying to make them look bad or trying to say that what they did wasn't great, that it's all about complementing it and taking it to the next level and building on a foundation. So that is definitely the first piece. The second piece, depending on the kind of resources that you have in your organization, if you're in a larger org who has a PMO, make PMO your very best friends. They are the ones who can literally move mountains for you and make things happen. And so understanding what their priorities are, what competing projects you're up against for most likely some finite funding and resourcing, and making sure, importantly, that you have someone like that who has a powerful voice, who is advocating for you and your project when you're not in the room. And so that was something really important that I learned in a larger organization. Now, in a smaller org like Capriotti's, we don't have a PMO function, but there's still those important stakeholders who help make those decisions for you. So you want to get in tight with the finance people. You want to really buddy up to the IT group, because these are the people who are going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And so you want to make sure that they believe in your vision, that they're excited about it, and that they're advocating for it, because these can be some of the silent killers of your project, when even if you have executive level buy-in, if you don't have that buy-in from the people people who are going to execute, who you need to not only be all in, you want them going the extra mile to make it a success. And if you have these kind of like silent saboteurs who are either poo-pooing your project or just kind of like not moving it along at the pace that you want it to, you'll be shocked to find some of these I can't remember the term that I've heard before, but it's kind of the unofficial power within the organization, or they're not necessarily in a position of leadership, but they have this considerable amount of influence on what actually gets done.
I love that phrase, silent saboteur. Absolutely taking that back. And I think we have all been on the other side of those actors. And so everything you just described speaks to a tremendous amount of insight into how do you move something forward. It makes me suspect that at some point things have not gone perfect for you and you've had to learn some lessons. But maybe I'm wrong. Has there ever been a time where one of your projects failed, and why?
Well, sure. I'm a really firm believer. One of the things that's so great about digital, about email marketing, about cross-channel is the fact that we have so much opportunity to quickly test and learn. And so I really think that if you're never putting a campaign out there, if you're never putting a promotion out there, if you're never putting some type of initiative out there that fails, then you're probably not pushing hard enough or far enough. We have that ability to truly fail fast. Get information really quickly, and then pivot really quickly. And that's always the way that I present it to my teams, to my leadership team, everybody, to say, hey, look, we're going to take a couple of big bets here. And then we put a date on the calendar and we say, this is how long we're going to take a look at it. And then we're going to get together and talk about how we think it's going. And then we'll either continue or we'll move to the next level or we'll quickly pivot. So, there's absolutely have been things that intuitively you think is going to be great. You think customers are going to love it, and then just for whatever reason, it's not the right moment, or you never know that you have these best laid plans, and then one of your competitors just barely beats you to the punch, and then all of a sudden you don't want to go out there looking like a copycat, and so you have to quickly change course there. So I think that there's a lot of things like that. I was actually just reading something the other day that was saying that, maybe it was Google, saying that like 50% of your goals should have a 50% chance of failure. And otherwise that you're not aiming high enough.
Got it. So I feel like for the folks in this room that work in CRM, this notion of being willing to fail, being willing to take chances and have them not succeed is very intrinsic to the field that we're in. At least my experience has been, though, that sometimes when you're working with executive or franchisees, there's an expectation that these big bets, they're always going to pay off and they're always going to win. So how do you think through and how do you position, navigate, get executive or franchisee buy-in to taking a risk and being okay and comfortable with it not being, the big swing home run for the next quarter?
So I think it's all in managing expectations, and so certainly it also just depends on the dollars that are behind it and the level of tolerance that your organization has for it, and then also what other kind of complementary or backup plans are in place. I mean, if you're going out and it's the only thing for the quarter, well, you probably need to structure it so that it has a pretty high chance of success. But if you have enough things that are built as a foundation, and then you want to, around it, build some things that are a little bit riskier, that high risk, high reward, like maybe it doesn't hit, but if it doesn't, that's okay, because we have this baseline thing that we're doing. Yeah. So I think it's all in setting those expectations and kind of getting everybody involved in almost the excitement of it being a risk, of saying like, hey, like it might not win, but what if it does? And then kind of have that dream kind of around it of like, well, if that worked, then what would we do? Then what would we do? And with the franchisees especially, it's very important. So many of them they're not marketers. I mean, they're operators. That's what they do. They run. In my case now, they run sandwich shops. So we actually don't really need or want them to spend a whole lot of time being deep in the marketing, because we want them at their shops making extraordinary sandwiches and giving incredible experiences. So one of the things that we've really worked on with them is really working on winning their trust and saying, if we can prove that we can do things that will drive traffic, that will drive profitable sales, that you can trust us, then that there are some things that you can let go of, that you don't need to be doing this portion of the work, because we will do it for you, and then we will give you some tools that you can use to do the things in your community that then will help further and build the brand. So winning that trust is a little bit tricky, but making sure that they know that, hey, just because we're going to run this one promo, like that's not going to immediately take your sales to the moon for the rest of the year. Like there's a finite period of time, and then we have to keep on doing more things. So there's definitely a level of expectation setting there around what marketing can do and what marketing can't do in terms of building long-term sales and brand.
Yeah, that education is so important, especially when you're working with folks that don't sit in the data day to day, and they don't know the jargon, they don't know the specifics. If we can tie this to a real example, as I understand it with Capriotti's right now, you're bringing a new approach to the loyalty program, and you're also starting to launch some new capabilities like SMS. So what are the challenges that you're facing with that, and then getting that buy-in with your internal teams and then with your operators?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Capriotti's has had a loyalty program for almost 10 years. And it's a traditional points-based program, 1 point per dollar. You get to 100 points, you get $10. But it had been largely just ignored, I would say, by the franchisees. They kind of expected that was this thing that was running over here. There's not anything that they really needed to do, and that hopefully it was working. And so, we really dug into the data and found that almost all of the participation in the loyalty program was coming through our digital channels. So it was the people who were ordering through the app, the people who were ordering through our first-party website. They were seeing all the benefits, saying, hey, this sounds great, making sure that they were logging in and participating in it. But then when you pulled that information out, it was almost 0% participation rate for in-shop transactions. And it had just always been kind of masked by our high digital sales that made the numbers look like kind of okay. And so really getting in and stripping that apart was a real eye-opener. And so we went in, we introduced some new capabilities to make it easier for the franchisees to sign people up at the POS. And then created some incentives for contests for improving your participation rate. We introduced some scripting to make it easy to tell people about the benefits in a quick and easy way at the register. And then we created some promotions to encourage people and give them more benefits that were like rewards members exclusive to take advantage of, and immediately saw a huge lift. What we learned was that there were a considerable number of the franchisees and operators who didn't even know that you could check someone in at the POS, didn't know how to pull up and redeem a reward. And even more tellingly, we found that there were more than a handful of shops that their tech was so far behind that they actually couldn't even do it. But there had been such little awareness and participation in the program that nobody even knew that the functionality wasn't working at the POS in some of these shops. So we got everybody upgraded. We got everybody in a place where they could do it, and we've just seen a really steady rise in our participation. And what we just continue to tell the franchisees is your customers want this. Like if you're not telling customers about this value, if you're not telling your most loyal customers that they could be earning this Caps Cash, that they could be getting these perks, like it's almost like you're stealing from them. And that kind of perks up and they're like, wait, what? You're doing your customers a disservice if you're not telling them about this. So it's really been changing that mentality, getting people excited about it, and helping them understand that if they can get the program, if they can get people enrolled, then we can in the background have this engine that is constantly working 24/7 to drive people in based on their preferences, based on their lifetime value, based on where they are in the customer journey, and that has been like really eye eye-opening for them, because they're like, I had no idea that all of that was happening in the background and that I wasn't taking advantage of it.
Got it. So what I kind of heard in there is there's a lot of quantitative data that you were able to capture around where customers were actually engaging with loyalty. And then you also had a good amount of softer qualitative reasoning, learning, et cetera, around the in-operation side, the franchisee lack of awareness, et cetera. So when you think about building a business case to kind of nicely put a bow on things and really get traction for your new approach or your project, how do you balance those? How do you think about the positioning of those softer pieces with the concrete pieces? And sometimes those concrete pieces are really hard to digest.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely the trick. So at Capriotti's we are we're a premium brand and we're not a discount brand, and so that has been a huge piece of the buy-in and the sell-in is about the way that we position it as strategic targeted value. We don't talk about discounting. We talk about strategic targeted value that then we are able to give to the customers who act differently when they receive it, as opposed to being out there with a blanket promotion that just anyone can get, and that then potentially brings the perceived value of the product down. So pulling all of that together, you just really have to have your numbers and your projections together. So what we've had to do is pull all these things together, take the targeted value that we want to give, really crunch the numbers with what the food cost is, what the labor is, what we think the average ticket will be, and really paint the picture that these will still be profitable sales within the sale that has the discount attached to it, and then tell the story of what we can do if we can bring a customer back one more time, or if we can take their cycle from a visit every 30 days to 2 visits a month. And so really painting out that picture to say, hey, look, I know that you think that every single one of these transactions is going to occur at full price no matter what. But I can show you that that's not the case. I can show you the lift. I can show you that it is accretive, and that you will benefit in the long run by having this, even though it doesn't feel good to you to have someone coming in and getting something at less than full price. So it's really making sure that you know that data, making sure that you believe in it, making sure that you are regularly measuring it, and then what we have found one of the most important pieces is then regularly circling back and reporting back. Because even once they buy in, if you just kind of like disappear into the background, then they just start to get suspicious and and assume the worst. So then that's when you start to get the phone calls of, oh, I gave away 500 free subs last week, and you're killing my profitability. You go and you pull it up, and you're like, well, you gave away 2 free subs last week, and and the average ticket on those 2 tickets was $28 after the discount. Like, I think you're doing okay. So, but if you have to have that conversation reactively, it's not ever received as well as if you're out there proactively saying, hey, look what's happening. Look how this is driving. Look how you're driving your membership. Look how engaged your customers are. So we've really seen a lot of great excitement from the people who really get it. And then now the best part is that the franchisees who are really on board and getting it are now being our advocates to the other franchisees who are a little bit more wary of doing it. And so then that's even more powerful when we have those conversations are getting headed off before they even come to us, because the other franchisees are saying, no, you've got this all wrong. You've got to think about it this way. So we've even started to set up peer webinars where we take people who are doing a good job or who have made a considerable leap in their participation rate, and they get on and they talk to the rest of the franchisees about why they think it's doing well, why they think that they are seeing success, and we've seen that really be really powerful in kind of winning over some of the people who have not been at the forefront of like, okay, I really want to jump on this.
Got it. Thank you. That was so insightful. We are, I think, running up here on time, and so I'll stop being selfish with my questions. And if we want to open it up to the crowd, what questions do we have for Kim?
Ryan, I'm going to go in the back just this once. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. What a day. What a day. Ryan, you're the man, Ryan. Mike here from Really Good Emails and Be Free. Super interesting. Thanks for talking about it. I'm curious on the localization side of, you have Delaware and Nevada and having those franchisers in different markets and being maybe applicable to the audience here where we have, markets like in different countries. How much control does corporate have over the marketing messages versus how much control does localization of those franchisees?
Sure. So it's a mix for us. So we have our two bigger markets, in the Las Vegas market and then the Delaware, like Greater Philly DMA, where we are able to truly purchase as a co-op, and so we are able to get that scale of media of like a higher level, the higher funnel awareness media in those two markets. For all of that, and that's about 2/3 of our shops fall into one of those big markets. But the other third are truly sprinkled in the four corners and all through the United States, and that is where the localization is extra important. We don't have the scale within the markets to purchase at that upper funnel awareness, and so for those we really have to focus on those local tactics. And so what we're really leaning in on right now is making sure that we have really scalable tools and guides that are really easy to follow, that we can put in the hands of a local operator who's trying to build a brand in their new market, and let them and give them kind of like a guide and a playbook of what they need to do within their community to establish themselves as the local sandwich shop, to get out there and get people enrolled in SMS and get people enrolled in the loyalty program. So it really is kind of a tale of two cities between our two big markets and all of our other shops on the importance of the local marketing.
So first, what you're saying about how you're running marketing, amazing. I mentioned earlier I am a franchisee for a QSR, and I wish you were the CMO of that one, because they need it. The question that I do have is, what's your take on influencer marketing? The franchisee or the company I'm with is what I believe overly indexed on influencer, but they are going all in trying to do too much of that and not much of the other stuff, core marketing that built a foundation for that relationship. What's your take on that? Do you use it in your business? I'd love to hear your opinion.
Sure. So, there's definitely a place for influencers in any kind of well-rounded marketing strategy, especially as you're appealing to kind of that like younger kind of Gen Z audience. What we really found in the past few years, especially, is that there's a whole kind of generation right now who truly uses social and particularly TikTok like a search engine. And so where, you and I probably, when we would come to Park City and be like, where should I eat at Park City? We're going to type that into Google. There's this whole group of people that they would never even dream of that. They would go to TikTok and search for the best places to eat in Park City. So then it's important to have content there. Now, whether it's content that you have created, whether it's UGC that you have sourced and placed, or whether it's influencers that you have pulled together, it is important to have that presence there. But then certainly if you lean too heavily into it, then you lose a lot of the other elements of a well-rounded mix. One thing I do, actually just had this conversation with some of our franchisees, where you have these lightning in a bottle moments where just the right person that you haven't even asked to do it goes and gets your sandwich and makes like maybe even not the greatest video, and it hits. Like suddenly you have 1 million views and people are lined up. This just happened to us in one of our locations outside of Atlanta, and this one guy talked about our Wagyu cheesesteak, and suddenly like there were just lines out the door of people who were there to wanted to try this Wagyu cheesesteak that they had never heard of. They didn't even know that our shop was there. So then everybody else was like, well, let's do more of that. Well, sure. I would love that. And so what I kind of had to tell them is that those are the moments that you can't buy. Like I could pay a ton of money for an influencer, and like maybe it has ad like hashtag sponsor all over it, and it just doesn't have the same impact. So helping everyone understand that you put yourself in a position hopefully where you can have those people who create those moments for you, but that they're really hard to buy.
Kim, thank you so much for kicking us off this morning.
Absolutely.